Yeah. Right on, man. Well, I
Well,
appreciate you guys having me on, man.
absolutely, man.
Yeah.
Well, welcome,
Welcome.
man. We apprappreciate your time.
Oh
So
man, it's gonna be fun.
you got my co-host over here, Bazooka Phil, in the house, and
Hey!
drummer
Hey, what's
AD
up?
Adams, man. Drummer AD Adams.
Thank you guys.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yes. We had to have you on, man.
I become more legendary as it gets later in the day. Matter of fact,
Okay.
I don't really become legendary until it's nighttime, and then I become totally legendary.
Hey, there you go. I don't know what it is about nighttime, but that's when everything seems to go down.
It's just easier to get away with shit, I believe. You know, it's one of
Yeah.
those things.
Right. So, hey, I was going to quick ask you. I know we got a lot to talk about, man, but I want to go over some of before. I know you've been drumming for a long time, and I just kind of wanted to go over some of the gear that you use in your performances. Can you give us a little rundown of what you're playing these days?
Yeah, as far as brand names go, I'm using TJS custom drums. They're hand built, completely hand built out here in Mesa. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. Cat in Mesa, Arizona, named Tom Schultz, hand makes all my drums. I've got about 8 of his kits right now, so I've got a few. I've got one that lives in New Orleans. I've got one that lives in Vegas all the time. So when I travel, I don't have to. I can travel lighter. TJS custom drums are all maple, and I love them to death. I've been endorsed with him since 1998.
Oh,
I
wow.
jumped on with him. I'm playing Peisty cymbals, and I've been with them for 6 years. Vic Firth drumsticks, I've been with them for 11, 12 years now. And left somebody else. Oh, Aquarian drumheads. I've been with them since, probably 2000, 2001. And then I just got a signed a deal with Dirtbag Clothing Company. So
I saw that.
Nice. Yeah, this isn't one of them. This is my own. This is Trash in Vaudeville, New York City. So repping the NYC, man.
That's great.
Nice.
That's my gear of choice. I also endorse a company called Ahead, which makes the synthetic drumsticks, and they have what they call Wicked Chops practice pad. It's this drum pad that's 2.5 inches. So I spend more time hitting air balls and cursing than actually hitting the practice pad. But it's one of those accuracy builders, and it's super challenging. And they asked me to film a promo video for it, and I couldn't hit the damn thing. I'm like, they're like, hey, where's my video? I'm like, you'll get it in about a month, dude, when I learn how to hit this damn thing. So I never got that video finished, needless to say. So what are you gonna do? So, but yeah, so the companies have been good to me. It's just all top pro gear. I've been very lucky, very blessed to have been able to, sign a deal with those guys. I mean, I always thought that was, you'd read on an album, Peter Criss plays Pearl because she wants the best. And I'm like, that's so cool, And I played Little League Baseball, and I had a Willie Horton, Detroit Tigers, Willie Horton baseball bat. And I'm like, how do you get your name on a baseball bat, And I got my name on baseball bats now. They got Vic Firth makes me custom drumsticks with my name on them and stuff. So I'm like kind of a big deal within about, I don't know, 10 feet of here or so.
Yes.
Oh, heck, man. You're a legend, dude.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. So speaking of Arizona, how'd you end up landing in Arizona, man, for home? How'd you call that home?
Honest to God, I threw a dart at a map. It was 1992. And I mean, I'm one of these guys probably tells more than I oughta. So I'll be that guy again. I had a couple of overdoses. I was pretty good. I was a competition junkie back in the day. Who could do more drugs? And so I had a couple of overdoses. And after my first one, I was still in the hospital, and I called my dealer up and I go, hey, I'm coming over. And he's like, didn't you just have an OD? I'm like, yeah. woo, set me up, bro. The second one wasn't very good. That was really kind of trying to get my shit together. And after that, when it kind of scared me, and I thought, Washington, DC is not the place to die. So I figured I'd move out to Arizona and die in a nice, beautiful place, but I didn't. So I got clean out here, and it was basically a life-saving device. I literally threw a dart at a map. It landed near Tucson, and I went, Phoenix? I'd been out here before when I was on tour in the late 80s. I did some shows with Patti LaBelle and other groups. I was actually mixing sound for artists like that, and I got into audio, and I was doing like Iggy Pop, the Ramones. I did a bunch of shows with the band, just countless number of groups that I was working with. And I came through here in February of like 87, 88. I'd never been to Phoenix before, and it was February, and it was probably 70 degrees. And I sat out by the pool, and I went, note to self, Phoenix, Arizona someday. And so when I threw that dart at that map, it was completely serendipitous. I was sitting, and I just threw it, and it was a whole map of the United States. And when it landed near Tucson, I went, okay, yeah, Phoenix it is. And I packed what little I had. I have my albums and my drums, and I put them in a rental van, and I moved out to Phoenix, and I saved my own life, really, to tell you the truth. So,
good for you, man. That's one of those hard steps.
It is, man. Hey, listen, too, if I tell too much, we're gonna need a secret, like a safe word or something. Okay.
Oh.
So if I start talking shit about something I probably shouldn't know to talk about, just go strawberries or whatever. Yeah. So we'll keep that
I don't
down.
think there's anything. Yeah, there's nothing off limits, man. We talk all kinds of shit on the show, so we're good.
Well, I come to the right place, apparently.
Yes, sir.
Hell yeah. Dude, so you started out, well, if I remember right, you were born in Detroit, and then moved out at a young age to Washington, D.C.
Yes.
And then that's where you kind of got into gigging and stuff. Did you grow up in a musical family? Obviously, some of your brother, you played in a band with your brother for years, right?
You're scaring me. You know too much. Yes.
Hey,
yeah.
If your toaster starts talking, just ignore it.
Keep an eye on you guys.
I got you bugged. No,
hey,
anyways.
You're legendary. You're legendary too. Keep an eye on you. The family. Yeah, my older brother played guitar. My mom and dad weren't musical per se in that they played instruments. My father, just out of high school to put himself through college, he was a DJ on an local AM station, Detroit station.
Oh, cool.
And so he was, DJ, late 50s, early 60s, Motown.
Nice.
Motown. And so he built his own hi-fi system back in the day, and it was really cool. Nobody did that. It was one of those kit things, and and that was his pride and joy. And he had a lot of records from when he was a DJ, and he also would buy albums and stuff. But around our house, it was all Sam Cooke, Sam and Dave, Supremes, Martha and the Vandellas, Little Richard, huge in our house. Chuck Berry, acts like that, Jerry Lee Lewis, he's kind of outside that periphery, but, rock and roll and Motown. And that was my mother's milk, really. If dad was home or mom was home, the stereo was on. And that was all it was. And dad knew every word to every song, and he'd be bopping around the house, and my mom would be cooking, and she's, and we just couldn't escape it. And then when the Beatles played Sullivan, I'm aging my strawberries. I'm going to age myself here. When the Beatles did Sullivan, I was almost 5 years old. So I saw it real time when it happened, not on some old black and white rerun. I saw it in black and white as it happened. So it was one of those things. My folks had a couple that had two boys the same age as my brother and myself. I was 4 at the time. My brother was 5. And we would every Sunday we'd go to their house and do, dinner and Disney, Lassie, then Sullivan. And then we go home. And then the next week they'd come over and we'd do dinner, Disney, Lassie, and Sullivan. And that was what we did on Sundays. And I remember, we didn't give a shit about anything. Disney was cool. We're kids. Lassie, it's getting a little too cerebral for a 4-year-old. I couldn't, what do you mean Timmy's falling in the well? And I was like,
go get Gramps.
Yeah, I couldn't figure out a dog, and I was like, it's a dog. And but then it was one Sunday. It was one of those things where we were at our house that Sunday, and it was the parents were kind of gathering us, like, you kids need to come in and see this, which was lightning in a bottle. I mean, how did they even know? Had I missed that, had I not, I'm a toddler, I'm a kid, and they dragged us all into the living room, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles, and my mom and her friend are sitting on the couch like freaking out. I'm looking at the TV, the girls are going nuts. My dad and his buddy are over on the other side having a cocktail, just going, what the hell, And I'd never heard anything like it. Was a sound that I wasn't familiar with, as a 4-year-old. I'm looking, and everything was frenzied and high energy. And here's these weird looking guys playing what I found out were guitars, and then old Ringo up there. And I kept looking at him, and he would look like he was having the most fun. And bam, that moment, it literally was a brick to the head of a little 4-year-old boy. Said, I need to do that. And that's how the whole damn thing started.
Attraction to the drums.
Instant. And my brother, who again, he's 5, we're both like, whoa, like, what is this? And I remember not too long after that, some weird, the weird spotty memories I have, but we got to be I started playing drums at 8. And I remember just after seeing that show, just bugging my mom and dad, I want to play the drums. No, you're too young. I want to play the drums. You're too young. And so I got to be 8. And I remember my brother, and he was talking. He goes, so I want to play the drums. I go, well, there's going to be 2 drummers in the house then. And so he's like, I'll switch it. So he switched to guitar. Well, he didn't switch. He never played drum, but his mindset was guitar. And that was literally the beginning of our band. That was the beginning of my music. At 8 years old, we started learning songs. And by the time I was 10, we had a band. And by the time I was 14, I had played my first nightclub.
Oh, wow.
16 years old, I went on my first tour. So I'm a lifer. I got no skills. I got one skill. Some people would say I have no skills, but
So that first tour, 16, were you cruising up and down the coast then, playing gigs?
Yeah, East Coast. Yeah, it was a little jaunt up through, DC, Maryland, Virginia, Baltimore. Going to Baltimore, that was a trek. Then you sneak up into Delaware, and you see how far down south in Virginia you could go. You make it down to Richmond, you're doing good. So it was just kind of summer vacation. I'm still in high school, so we started, kind of small regionally, select nightclubs here and there, preferably beaches, because we were 16 years old, and beaches equals bikinis, and that was a good thing. So we kind of did that, and then that very same band that we started in our bedroom when we were babies, basically. I was in that band till I was 27 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we got turned down. We got hired and fired by every record label that you can name, probably. We were told we were unmanageable and things like that. But it's ironic.
Why doesn't that surprise me, man?
Hey, there's that. But ironically enough, one of our old managers is in prison in Miami as we speak for the rest of his life for Ponzi schemes and defrauding. He was a big concert promoter in New England, and he booked in Nassau Coliseum, Madison Square Garden, and all these places. And, we were his guys. You know, he put us on the cover of Performance Magazine. I mean, he came in and really did good, but there were always a bunch of red flags with this guy. And of course, you know, again, we had managed all this time to do what we did, and we're like, this is working out. And then he comes along, and we're thinking, wow, this is the big time, you know. And turned out he was just a bullshit artist. So we're unmanageable. Like, dude, you're in prison. So
yeah, right.
You know, there's that.
So and then so at 27, is that when you joined Dirty Looks?
Yes.
So you left that band with your brother, and then
yeah, it had run its course, you know. And you know, two brothers in a band. I don't think I need to remind everybody how that goes. Right. Gallagher brothers, Davies brothers, you know. So you know, we know how that goes sometimes. We love each other dearly, but it was stressful. There were a lot of drugs and alcohol, and we were running the show, and it was a tough juggle, you know, for people who we didn't know the industry. We made it all up as we went along, you know, and I thought we did pretty good, but there was a time at which it's just, I can't do this anymore. I just can't, you know, I love you, but I got to go. I can't. And immediately upon that, one of our booking agents from New York City called and said, hey, listen, I understand you know, you're free now. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I got something for you. Make this phone call. So I called Henrik Ostergaard, who's the leader of Dirty Looks. And he told me, yeah, I've been expecting your phone call. Can you get up to it? I was living in an apartment with my girlfriend at the time in Alexandria, Virginia, right outside Washington, D.C. And I called the number, and he says, well, can you get to Pennsylvania by tomorrow? And I said, yeah. So I had no prep, didn't know any of their songs. The band was just starting out. And so I drove up to Pennsylvania, stayed there for about 5 days, learned their material. And then I did their first record called In Your Face, pre-Atlantic Records. So it was on a label called Sticky Records, which is basically, we made that up. Put it out ourselves. So, but nice. that was, I did that for about a year with those guys. And again, red flags, their bass player at the time. And I think he put the band back together. Henrik passed away a few years ago, but the bass player had some issues, had temper issues. He was a farm boy from really super high strung cat living on a farm in you know, mid Pennsylvania near Harrisburg. And we finished a gig one night in Erie and drove all the way back to the farm, which was the headquarters. And I guess $20 ended up missing somehow from the merch. And for some reason, I was accused of that, which I had, you know, like, come on, man, $20. First of all, $20, fuck you. You know, if I was going to rip you off, I'd be a lot more than that. And it turned out he just had a violent streak. So I was unloading my gear, and he took one of my tom holders, the arms that hold the tom up, and cracked me in the head right back there. Fun. Knocked me clean out. And
wow.
Yeah. So to this day,
Did you get him back?
Well, I quit the band, and so yeah, they were out of business for a minute or two, but you know, it was you know, it was something that as far as I know, they found that it was $20. They found it. You know, it's like, yeah, dude, come on, man.
That's fucked up. So,
yeah, it is. It was, you know, and I was more disappointed that you know, Henrik let it roll. He didn't do anything to calm the situation. So yeah, it was a little scrap, but he was a big boy. He kicked my ass, you know. I mean, knocked me clean out at first. I was out, so I didn't stand much of a chance on that. But you know, it is what it is. They did what they did, and you know, they're basically, you know, trying to salvage the pieces, and I'm still playing, you know.
Yeah.
So it was I love the band. I love the songs, you know. I'm a big AC/DC freak, and you know, it was right in my element. And I'm like, this is cool, you know, but it wasn't the right fit. So at that point, you know, I was getting a little tired, and I was I didn't. I wanted to keep playing, but there was nothing immediately available that I was interested in, and so there was a nightclub in DC called the Bayou, and it's what they call an A-list club. Guns N' Roses played there. U2 played their first American show there. And my band used to sell the place out. Monarch was the old band. And we would sell that place out every time we played. It was absolutely amazing. And so I had kind of carte blanche. If there was a concert there that I wanted to see, I'd just call up the manager and go, hey, did you put me on the guest list? And it was like, yeah, no problem. So Iggy Pop was playing there one night. And I called, the production manager. Hey, John. Hey, dude, listen, Iggy's tonight. He goes, can't help you tonight. He goes, the fire marshal is in. He's in here now. And he said, we're already at capacity sales. He goes, and he's going to be here tonight. And he said, because they were dying to shut that place down. And he said, I can't. One more person over the limit, and he's going to shut us down. So I'm like, crap. Well, about an hour and a half later, maybe 3 hours prior to the show, I get a phone call. It's John. He goes, hey, you know how to run sound? I go, yes, I do. And he goes, our monitor guy just bailed. Can you be down here? And I'll be down there in 15 minutes. So I drove down there. Of course, I'd never run sound in my life. I had no idea. But I get to see Iggy, right? So he brings me over to the monitor mix, over to the monitor position console. And it was a 10 mixes on stage. And I'm looking at the board, and I think he knew right away. He goes, you don't know how to do this, do you? And I go, no, I know. And so he's like, man. And he was a friend of mine. I'd worked with him before. So he gave me a 5-minute tutorial. Okay, this, boom, this, boom, boom, boom. But I'd been around monitors. I mean, I know that if it was squealing, you turn it down, So, and the show went incredibly well. Iggy was just so happy, which made me happy because Iggy likes me. I'm a baby still. And I got hired at that club as their monitor guy. And then I did house sound on the weekends. So I took a break from drumming for a bit for about a couple of years. And then that's how I got, I met so many people there, man. So many. I did so many bands. I listed a few, but I did comedians. I became friends with Sam Kinison. I don't know if you remember him. He played there for a couple of nights. And then if you're a Monty Python fan, Graham Chapman came through for 2 nights. And I, spoken word comedy, video presentation, and I actually scored heroin for him one night. It was pretty cool. So that's my, I'm pretty proud of that one. So, and I ended up getting some, I did a soul tour band Star Point. I did some Patti LaBelle shows. And this takes us up to probably about 87, 88. And then I started getting the itch to play again. But that was, running sound like that. That was one of the best things I ever did because it was an A-list club. I met so many people, man. I met so many people that to this day are a big part of my life and my career. And I owe them a lot for taking a chance on a junkie, an idiot junkie at that. So
you became friends with Sam a little bit, didn't you? Didn't you guys?
I did. Yes, out? I did. Yeah. I would. He would come into town. He played as he got bigger and bigger and bigger, and he would come into town, and he'd always drop by the Bayou on the weekends. And of course, he'd have a big bag of blow. And hey, let's go in your office. And I'm like, all right, let's do that. So yeah, Sam was a great guy. I loved him dearly. It was a sad day when he passed. And he actually, ironically enough, about an hour and a half from here is where he passed away. So there's he was heading south, leaving a little town called Needles on the California-Arizona border. And just south of Needles on that freeway is where he got in that accident. So I've driven by that site a few times. And
wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it was a sad day, man. But great guy. Yeah. He is not the guy he presents himself. The whole innocent shtick. It's not. who he is. He's actually a really good man. He was a good man and a very kind person. I really liked him. He's one of those guys you just love right away, and not because of who he is, but because of who he is. He's a good man, and you knew that. So
yeah, he was one of those guys. I was like, man, I would love to party with that guy. I would love just to hang out. I probably wouldn't have been able to keep up though.
He was
in the ditch.
He liked to party.
Yeah.
He liked to party, man. Once it was on with him, and he just he was always just so fun, and obviously he owned the room that he was in. And I think the more people in the room, the more animated he got. I think he was playing to the crowd a little bit, but there was always that kind soul in him that you root for a guy like that, and obviously his comedy was groundbreaking, and he was one of a kind at the time. So, he ran that. He kind of walked that line between be that crazy guy, when to flip the switch and when not to. I've seen him flip the switch when probably he shouldn't have. But he was a good man. That's all I got to say about that. He was a good guy, and I miss him. But I wish we still had him.
Right on. Yeah. So hey, so I know you teach, you're a drum teacher.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring new students in, is there any advice or any pointers that you give them immediately on maybe any playing styles or different things that they should be aware of when they're getting into this new instrument? They're getting ready to go on a journey.
Well, it's interesting. That's a great question, really, and there are probably a few answers to that. And I guess it really depends on the student. I mean, I'll take on beginners, I'll take on intermediate, and I got guys who are making records. I got guys who I got their albums, and everybody's got different needs. The first thing I do, I figure if they're coming to me for lessons, they at least have a snare drum. So the first thing I'll do is I'll sit them down at a drum set and say, play for me. Don't play I don't want your best solo. I don't want, don't show off. I want you to play a groove that you're comfortable with, play some fills. Give me 2 minutes. Give me 1 minute. Just play. I don't care what you play, but just play comfortable things, and then I can look and see what they're trying to do. And some people will go, I can't play. I go, if you have a drum, what do you do? So show me, even if it's whack, whack, whack. What do you do when you sit down at your kit? And I can tell immediately where to go from there. Even cats who are established and more advanced drummers, I'll see what they're doing in their fills, and I'll think of some adjacent or parallel type things. I go, okay, well, I see what you did there. Are you familiar with linear style? Are you familiar with, have you gotten into polyrhythmic or odd times or metric modulation, playing through the bar, or trading out, modulating 16th notes? Have you explored that? Playing cowbell with your left foot, doing Latin clave rhythms with your left hand. So I'll start asking them questions, the more advanced guys. And you throw enough darts, you sooner or later you're going to pop that balloon, and you find out exactly where to start with them, and then you're off. Once you get a good stride going, it's easy from there,
So when did you start teaching?
Oh man, I started teaching in 80. Well, really, when I was doing the sound thing, because I was only, was working at night. I was going in 6, sometimes 7 nights a week to this nightclub, depending on who they had booked there. I might get a Monday night off or a Thursday night off, but I was also working just part time at a local music store, and they didn't have drum lessons. And, I had established my name. So they're like, let's just throw him in the drum department. We'll get some people coming in, which was cool, but they didn't have lessons at that store. So a buddy of mine was a really good drummer. I'll name a name. His name is Corey Holland, and he's a badass right now. He's still, shout out to Corey Holland. Look him up. He's great. And it's still a dear friend. But he was teaching. So I'd have people come in every day that I was there and say, hey, do you guys teach? And like, no, but here's Corey's card. Give him a call. So Corey was making money hand over fist. And I'm like, damn, dude, and he would call me up and he'd take me out for steak dinner. He goes, I owe you money, dude. And I'm like, nah, you don't owe me anything. But pretty soon he called and said, listen, I'm full. I can't take anymore. And he said, by the way, why are you doing this? Why don't you teach, you idiot? And I'm like, because I didn't want to say it, but I couldn't read music. So it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing, and so he's like, well, I'm sending you a student. And I'm going, oh, man. So he did. And I said, all right, challenge accepted. So this kid was in high school and it was my first lesson. And we sit down at the kit and I'm like, what do you want to do? And he pulls out this sheet. It looked like a Rorschach test. There were so many fucking notes on it. I'm like, oh, man, this is not going to go well. And I had taken some lessons when I was 8 years old for 6 months, and I I'll always remember the teacher going, you have to count out loud. You have to read it like you're reading a book, but read it out loud. So I'm like, read that for me. And he read it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that is what that says. And I'm, barely read. So I go, okay, play what you just read to me. And he played it. And I'm looking at the notes. And I'm going, okay, I think I remember that. And I literally I pieced it together. The lesson ended up going really well, oddly enough. And that's when I started teaching. I started taking on students. And I'm like, and I learned to read. I sight read now. And I learned to read. And I went back while teaching because I could play, and I retaught myself everything that I should have learned along the way as I was teaching. So when I'm teaching you how to do a paradiddle and you're practicing it, I'm playing along with you because I'm practicing too, and it turned out okay. So I still teach to this day. And that's been, what did I say? 88, I think, 88, 89.
Awesome.
Nice.
Now at the time also, after I got off the road, with the sound, I put a band together with, there was a band that used to open for my band in the DC area, and they were really a bunch of good kids and they had great songs. And the current bass player for Kicks, Mark Schenker, was a friend. And he was the bass player. So we put a band together called Centerfold, and we did okay. We were the first band signed to CMC International Records. If you remember, Everybody Dance Now.
Oh, yeah.
That was the second band signed to CMC International. So we got signed, and then the record label president wanted me to be the lead singer. I'm like, nah. I'm not gonna do that. So we had a drummer come in for a while. I don't know if you remember an old band called Pentagram.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, Pentagram, Joe Hasselvander, a good friend. He was a drummer for Pentagram at the time. So we called him. I'm like, and the guys are like, you got to do this. I'm like, I'm not doing it. So they say, if we get Hasselvander, will you do it? So I called Joe up and I go, dude, here's what's happening. And he's like, yeah, I'll do that. And I'm like, oh shit. So I gave the lead singer thing. We did one tour and I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm not a singer. I'm a drummer. Just, So, and that was right about the time we were doing, I was doing a lot of drugs, and that's about the time I had my first overdose. So it was a great singer-songwriter named Robbie Galpin on guitar. And he played with Funny Money, sort of that Kicks side project, and Mark Schenker. And those two went on to do Funny Money. Mark is now with Kicks. And we're still all great friends. But there was about, probably 150 songs that we'd recorded. And so when I moved to Phoenix, I didn't know anybody. I just moved out here sight unseen. I got a place. I got a job at a music store teaching the very first day I was here. I got incredibly lucky. And I was at a local bar, or they had great steak and cheese there. So I walked to this little watering hole near my apartment, and I was picking up my steak and cheese, and some guy walks up and he goes, "Hey, you look like you're a musician." I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking, okay, shady character. What are we doing here? And he tells me he's a movie producer, and I'm like, yeah, you know, and I'm Muhammad Ali, dude. So he was a movie producer, and he was looking for songs for his movie. It was a film called Desert Blues. Turns out it was Johnny Knoxville's first movie, and he wanted one song, and I said, I'm not going to do one song. If you give me the soundtrack, I'll do your soundtrack. So I took those songs from Centerfold. I called the guys up. I go, hey, I got an opportunity here to move these tunes, and they're like, dude, take them, do whatever you need to do. So we had a meeting, and I should say, ended up with 11 songs in this horrible, horrible movie called Desert Blues. It's
Oh wow.
it's still out there, and it's just awful, just bloody awful. But a band was formed because, you know, me, you probably already can tell my personality. I say to the producer and the director, well, I think you need a live band in this movie. And he's like, well, he bit. And so I had put together a little band from cats that I knew at the music store. And I ran into an old friend by then, a guy named Mikey Bones, the best friend I ever had, man. And he was from New York City. I met him in New York in 1980. And he happened to have been living out here, unbeknownst to me. I ran into him, and I'm like, what are you doing out here? What are you doing out here? So we put a band together. We called it Born Screaming. And we were in that film, and, you know, poor mom was so embarrassed. It was one of those, you know, R-rated, you know, 4 guys and 4 girls accidentally rent the same vacation thing. And
nice.
they decide we'll just do this together, and everybody's, you know, banging, and it's a boob fest. And, you know, but we, you know, that was my film. That was my big contribution. So it was fun. It was a good little project. It was a nice welcome to Phoenix party for me. So I felt like I embedded myself immediately into the Phoenix scene, and was resented by the locals immediately. It was pretty shitty, you know.
Really?
Yeah, who's this new guy? And fuck that guy. I got a lot of that. I got a lot of that, man. But what are you gonna do?
Right. Well, when you brought Mikey, and I saw some of your posts and everything, you know, talking about it. Tell us, give us, you know, in honor of Mikey, just give us a good story, you know, something to help keep the, you know, that alive, the memory alive.
Mikey was that guy, and he had the deep New York. He'd talk like this, you know, but he'd get excited, his voice would go up. So we'd always we'd bust his balls, you know, and he'd go, well, what are you going to do? I go, I don't know. What are you going to do? He go, hey, cut it out. I don't do cut it out. And he goes, so we're always imitating him, and he's funny, the greatest guy, literally the best friend I've ever had in my life. And he passed away yesterday, 6 years ago. So it was a rough day for me yesterday, really bad. I love him dearly and miss him, but he's the guy. He knows everybody. I mean, literally everybody. And as long as I've known him, the phone would ring, and it's Bones. Hey, got a gig for you. I'm like, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing Thursday? Miley Cyrus needs a drummer. And I'm like, all right, well, let's go do that. Hey, what are you doing hey, can you go on tour in a month? I got these guys, give them a call, you know. And he was constantly setting me up with all kinds of stuff. He just, you know, and I'd call him, but he knew everybody. So it wouldn't be 2 weeks, a month goes by. Hey, I got a gig for you. Hey, give this guy a call. He's looking for you, you know, and just magic, you know. But I got more damn Mikey Bones stories than I could tell you. You know, he said the best friend I ever had, and you know, he's gone. He got me into the Louis Prima band, you know.
Yeah, Ryan was talking about that.
Yeah. And it was one of those interesting things. I was playing in a punk band. This was probably 2000. Well, I started the Glass Heroes is the band. And we were playing in Vegas. And I remember Mikey going, hey, because Mikey had moved from Phoenix to Vegas. He goes, hey, you guys are playing here in town on Friday. I go, yeah. He goes, hey, put me and Lou on the guest list. I go, you and Lou, you got it. So Lou, I don't know who Lou is, you know. And so they come in after, you know, the show. And after the show, we're hanging out. There's my buddy Lou. Nice to meet you, Lou. And that's all I knew. And so we finished the gig. Is what are you guys going to do? And I'm like, I got nothing to do. I'm in Vegas, and you guys are here. So let's go do something. So Lou goes, hey, I know these porn stars. They're doing karaoke tonight. So I'm like, well, let's do that, So we go
Porn
to this
star
place.
karaoke.
Dude, I swear to God. And so we go there, and it's a riot. I mean, it's in some place that rented out in some casino, some dark and shithole casino, and chicks are topless, and it's fucked up, and some girl would get up to sing, like, I don't know, I feel the earth move under my feet. She'd get up there, she goes, oh, I don't know the words, and but I could put this microphone in my vagina,
Magic acts.
That's how the whole night was like that. I'm like, I like this guy, Lou. Who's this Lou guy? Tell me more about yourself, Lou. That's what I found out. He was Louis Prima's son, Louis Prima Jr.
Yeah.
And he's tatted. He's got tats up. So the last thing I'm imagining is the son of a jazz legend. And we saw the sun come up that night, and it's like, you guys are gonna. I'm not dying in Vegas with you clowns. I'm out of here. Probably, I don't know, man. About maybe a month later, Mikey, hey, remember my buddy Lou? Hey, I got a gig for you. And boom. So that's what happened. And I had introduced he and Ryan through some other projects when Mikey was still down here. And Mikey gets along with everybody. Ryan gets along with everybody. And so when Louis called me, they were also looking for a guitar player. When Mikey called me, Louis was also looking for a guitar player. And of course, I suggested Ryan, but apparently Mikey had already called him. So it's like, so it's the greatest, man. And Ryan and I brought Ryan into, I don't know if you remember a band from the 80s called Trickster.
Oh yeah.
So Pete Lauren, I met him here, and I have a studio, a recording studio, and Shabby Road is the name of it. Imagine Abbey Road, but really, really shitty. So it's called Shabby Road. And a lot of people come here to rehearse. Ted Nugent rehearsed here. Black Sabbath's rehearsed here. So there's, it's kind of a notorious little spot to come and do your thing. It's private, so off the beaten path. You can't find it even if you're looking for it. So it's kind of a nice place. So Pete Lauren's band at the time, the Pete Lauren Project, wanted to rent the place from me for a rehearsal. Their album had just come out, and their record label president called me and asked me, could I rent the place out? I'm like, yeah, sure. So they needed it the next night. Well, I was teaching at the time, and the guy came in and brought me a CD. He goes, here, I just want to give you this. Thanks. So I had some spare time, and I listened to the record, and I'm going, this is good, So I listened to it again, maybe 3 or 4 times. I'm like, this is good. I can't wait to meet these guys, So they come in the next night as scheduled, but the drummer didn't show up. So I had a drum set ready for him to go. And it was set up, of course, the way I like it. And I figured he could move it. I don't care. And he didn't show. And Pete says to me, I hear you're a drummer. I go, yeah, I play. And he goes, I know you don't know the material, but would you sit in with us just so we can get the rehearsal done? So I'm like, yeah. Well, I played long enough where if I listen to a song 3 or 4 times, I'm going to play that song. And so I basically played the entire album with him that day. And there were a couple of mistakes here and there, but they're like, whoa, dude, you're our drummer. And so their drummer lost his gig that night, and I joined Pete's band. Then Pete needed another guitar player, and I go, I like Mikey Bones, I got this guy. And it was Ryan McKay. So I called Ryan and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? So Ryan joined. Ryan and I had met. I think we met in 98 or 99. We were both subbing for some horrible cover band. I was subbing on drums and he was subbing on guitar, and it was like, hey, nice to meet you. We did our thing. We went separate ways. And then there was a big Sabbath concert out here. It was Sabbath, Pantera. They called it New Year's Evil. And it was Pantera, Slayer, Sabbath, Ozzy, because that's when Ozzy was doing the tours with Sabbath. Both bands, right? Remember that? And so I'm in line at that concert, and Ryan and I had already done the top 40 thing and met each other once or twice, but didn't know each other at all. And I'm in line, and literally the guy in back of me in line. I turn around and we're looking at each other, trying not to get caught, trying to figure out who he is. And he was doing the same, according to him. He's like, I knew you. I couldn't figure it out. And finally, I can't remember who did, but one of us spoke. And it was like, you're that guy, you know? And so we traded numbers. I think I had a bunch of beer in my jacket. And I peeled off a Bud label and wrote my number on it, as I recall, and gave it to him. And so we traded numbers. And that's how I got a hold of him for the Pete Lauren thing. And that ran its course. And then I hooked up with Michael Bruce from the original Alice Cooper group. Right. And again, I was writing songs. 10-year-old me is shitting his pants. I'm writing songs with Michael Bruce from the Alice Cooper group, and he's living in my house. They lived with me for a year and a half, almost 2 years. And little AD's dreams were just beyond. I mean, I'm like, this is it. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. High five. And so Michael found he wanted to get another guitar player. So I got a gig for you. And of course, Ryan jumped right on that. But I'm pretty proud of that. It turned into a disaster. Michael had some notorious substance issues that were constantly on the front burner and boiling over. It was a constant struggle to keep him, in line, and God bless him. Now he's straight. He's doing great. He's married. It looks wonderful. It's beautiful. And but at the time it was tough. It was tough to get anything done. But we had written a bunch of songs and recorded them. And one of those songs. Now, when Alice Cooper did his second "Welcome to My Nightmare," I think it's called "Welcome to My Nightmare." Yep. One of our tracks is on that album. It's track number 11 called "When Hell Comes Home."
Oh wow!
So nice. I'm a co-writer on that.
Man.
Well, semi-awesome. It's cool as shit. I can talk about it, but I can get any writing credit on it, which is typical.
Right. Oh, gotcha.
That's the kind of thing I'm talking about with Michael. So, I'm friends with Alice. I've talked to him about it, and he's like, that's like, don't worry about it. I don't know. What do we want to do? I'm going to sue Alice Cooper? I'm not going to do that.
Right. Alice seems like a really cool guy too. He just all 100%. The interviews and stuff. I've never met him in person or anything like that, but he always seems like a really cool guy. So is that coming out of that? Is that's how Christ Street Kids got put together, right?
Almost, yeah. Almost? There's one step in between that. Well, two. Yeah, one step in between that. But no, 2 steps in between that. When Pete Lauren's band finally broke up, their record label went under, and Pete, just called it a day, pulled the plug on that. Ryan and I had gotten together and started writing as a result of the Michael Bruce thing. After Michael, I quit that. I told Michael, I can't do this. So, Ryan and I got together and we're starting to write. And Ryan McKay, I got to tell you, I have 5 favorite songwriters. One's name is John, the other name is Paul, and I think you know who I'm referring to. And the 2 Ians, Ian Anderson and Ian Hunter, are my, and I'm going to put in that pile, I'm going to put Ryan McKay in there. He's absolutely one of my favorite songwriters. The guy's a genius. Nice. I'm going to flat out say it. The guy's a genius, and the most humble guy you'll ever meet. I love him dearly. Dear friend. I love him. And so I called him up and I go, what are you doing? He called me, let's get together at your place. So we started getting some stuff together. A really good friend of mine, a great bass player named Tim Germani, but we called him Germ. So the Germ, he's playing bass, and Pete calls. He goes, what are you guys doing? I'm going, hey, you remember Ryan? We got a little project going with him. He's like, well, let me jump in. So Pete joined the band. So we had a little band called Super Soul Fighter. And we had a bunch of material. And we're doing a lot of TV appearances and stuff, a few shows here and there. But it just never, I think, there were some issues in Pete's personal life, nothing bad, I think, but there were some things going on that he needed to tend to. And so that ran its course. So we would meet at my studio, and Ryan was like, why don't we just meet at your studio anyway? Every Tuesday night, let's just get together. Well, I have a massive vinyl collection. And Ryan didn't. He didn't have it. He didn't own any records. He had CDs, but he didn't own any vinyl. And I would bring vinyl down here because I had a record player down here in my studio. And every week I'd bring about 10 or 20 albums down from my house. So those are the records I'm just going to be spinning for the next few days, and so it basically, he'd come down on Tuesday nights and we just listen to records and have some whiskey and talk about the records and the bands that I was into and that he had never even heard of. He had never heard of Mott the Hoople. He had never heard of Silverhead. He had never heard the New York Dolls, and so he's just like, holy shit, like, what is this? So he became an instant 70s, early 70s junkie, just like me. And musically, what we learned from these Tuesday night sessions is that we had so much in common that we didn't even know. And we bonded so tightly. Just it was immediate, solid friendship. And from those listening sessions, we were down here one night. I'm in my studio now. We were down here one night, and Ryan, we were a little drunk, and I think we were spinning "Dressed to Kill" by Kiss. We had that album spinning, nice. And I think it was Ryan who goes, "What would be fun if we wrote a song that should have been on that album?" So, in other words, write as if we were Kiss in that era. And so we're laughing about it. Well, anything that we laugh about, like howls of derisive laughter, if we get laughed, if somebody suggests something, even being a smartass, and we laugh about it, then we're doing it. It's on. And so next week, Ryan comes back with his guitar, and a new batch of records. I go, "Hey, what do you got your guitar there, buddy?" He goes, "I wrote a song, should have been on Dressed to Kill." I'm like, "What? Come on, really?" And he wrote a song called Sugar Queen. I'm like, "That dude, that's badass." So I think we were listening to Cheap Tricks in color and black and white the following week. And I go, "Well, why don't we just write a damn Cheap Trick song? Should have been on that record." So we did. And so on and so on. Well, next thing you know, we're sitting on these tunes. Well, we made a rule, and again, we laughed about it. Okay, the rule is if we bring a song in, we're going to write that song and we're going to record the drum tracks in the first night, totally organic. And we did, and we did, and we did, and we did, and we did. And next thing you know, we've got an album's worth of material, and we're like, this is good. This is really good. So we were playing all the instruments on it. Well, there's a local cat, a really great guitar player, young cat named Ricky Serrano, Tricky Ricky Serrano.
Yeah.
God, guy's badass, man. And my stepson was a bass player. So, Ryan and I were the old guys, and we'd come in and we're putting all the instruments on. Well, these dudes, Ryan and Ricky, were friends. And so they would come in, "Hey, man, can we hang out at the studio while you're doing this thing?" And one time it was like, Ryan has his guitar and he's doing a lead. He's like, "Why am I doing this? Really? Ricky Serrano's here." So he hands him his Les Paul. Ricky puts a solo on the record. Next session, we had Deuce, my stepson, play bass. And we're finishing this. It's not even a record. We're just recording songs. And so a good friend of ours named Mick Treadwell, he used to be Pink Floyd's production manager. He comes by and goes, "Oh, Mike, this music's fantastic. You've got to put it out." We're like, "No, it's just for us. We're not, no, it's just for us. It stays in this room." "No, you're crazy, mates." So he was at the time a promoter at Live Nation. So about 3 weeks later, he calls me up and says, "Hey, man," he goes, I've got a gig for you booked." And I'm like, "What do you mean you got a gig booked?" And there's a place in town called the Venue of Scottsdale. It's a 1,000-seat club. He goes, I've booked you at Venue of Scottsdale. I go, "Mick, we don't have a band. Like, why would you do that?" "Well, you've got to get it together, mate." So he takes us out to dinner and gives us the old pep talk. And next thing you know, we're learning the damn songs on the record. We've got a bunch more, and we play the gig. For that first gig, Alice Cooper, he lent us his rehearsal studio and a bunch of his staging, and we had built staging and stuff. So we, again, at the suggestion and the resulting laughter, I go, "We need drawbridges. We need the piano to go 30 feet in the air." And we're laughing. So I built a stage with the piano went 30 feet in the air. We had drawbridges and ramps, and it was literally a playground. And so we put on confetti cannons. We had cheerleaders with sparklers on their boobs. I mean, we had everything. I mean, and if it was ridiculous, we're doing it. And that was Crash Street Kids. That's how that got born. Alice loved us. We would play he had a club out here called Alice Cooperstown. And it was a baseball rock and roll themed club. And we played there. And to me, again, 10-year-old me, was in tears one night. We're playing. And I look up and it was like the Pope in his balcony, and way up in back, you couldn't see him, but Alice would step out on his balcony and watch the band from above, from high up from on high. And I'm playing and I look up and there's Alice and he's pumping his fist and he's singing the words, and I'm like, I'm playing, I'm crying like 12-year-old me again is just going, my God, like what is, like this is insane. And, next thing you know, we're off to the races. So that was an amazing experience. We put out 5 albums, which I love very much. Well, I love 4 of them. I hate one of them. One of them's a live album, and we recorded at Alice Cooperstown over 2 nights, and I just can't listen to that one.
Live from the pants, the waist down, right?
Live from the waist down, and of course we had the 3 in live theory too, because Bloister Cult. They did their 3 black and white records, then live. Kiss had their first 3 records, then live. We're like, so after we finished our 3rd record, we're like, what do we do now? It's like, we put out a live album, don't we? So kind of, we have what we call the rock and roll rule book, So I was like, well, I don't know. What do you want to do next? I don't know. Look in the book. What are we supposed to do? What would Bowie do? What would Humble Pie do? So that was us. And again, it was always good natured. It was always like, if it's ridiculous, we're doing it. If we're giggling about it, if the idea is funny to us in that way, we're going to do it. It just was our way of doing things. And what we intentionally did was we avoided big labels. I was done with big labels. Been with Warner, been with Atlantic, and they're making all the money. I'm doing all the work and they're making all the money. And I'm thinking, gosh, they have an awful big building and I'm living in a shithole apartment. There's something wrong with the balance of this. So we made the pact that we were not going to shop to larger labels. So we started our own, and it was Hot City Recording Company, and we did our own thing, and we got distribution and did really, really well with it. Not as well as we'd have liked to, but 5 albums worth, and I'll take it. I love that band. Man. Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. I love what we did.
Yeah, I love that stuff, man. I think I've told you before, but yeah, Crash Street Kids, fucking killer stuff, man. Just killer stuff.
Thank you. And again, that I harken back to my comments about Ryan McKay being an absolute brilliant songwriter. Those first 3 albums, we had written the first album that, again, wasn't really an album, but we noticed a trend. And I said, if you put these songs in a particular order, there's a storyline. And of course, I guess we're making a concept album here. So the initial title for the record was Let's Rock and Roll Tonight. And so we decided that at the end of that, we were going to call it the Supersonic Star Show. ... Let's Rock and Roll Tonight. We go, so the album's over, and it was kind of the last song left it to the storyline, left a little ambiguous ending. So we go, well, let's continue the story for the second album. And so that became the Supersonic Star Show Part 2, Chemical Dogs.
Chemical Dogs, yeah.
And we still weren't done. So we're like, well, we got to kill the guy. So the whole concept was this rock star, this guy is in the future, right? Well, you don't know this yet. You don't know this at all. All you know is he's the biggest rock star on the planet. We called him the Kid. And it was basically, we're telling about his meteoric rise to success. And that's the first album. So we're sitting around having some whiskeys, go, what do we do with the guy? And I go, well, he gets into drugs and alcohol, dude. and I say, the second album, we make it as dark as possible. This guy's an asshole. He was a good guy and everybody loves him, but now he's a drug addict, doesn't show up for gigs, Axl Rose meets Sly Stone. And and so Chemical Dogs was made, and it's a very dark album. It's a very dark, dark record. And then so we're like, okay, that record is it. So we can't. Well, he's not dead. We didn't kill him, and he's still around. He's still a rock star. So we got to do something with this guy. And we're like, Supersonic Star Show Part 3, you know. And
Nice.
so we wrote that, and that was the that's when you find out song track 1 on the third album is called The Engineers, and that's when the giveaway is. It's like he's from the future. He was in prison in the future, and he found these old Bowie albums in you know, album covers in a what do you call it, earth you know, where they fill the earth, where they fill the earth up, you know, like a trash dump, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, and so he spent he in the storyline he would spend 23 hours a day in suspended animation, but they'd let him out for a day. And the prison, the future prison, was built on a dump site. So he found this album. Yeah, landfill. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. And so, as instead of parole, the engineers in the future said, "Listen, we're doing some time travel experiments, and if you volunteer, you can be whoever you want and go to whatever time you want." And the guy looking at the Bowie album. He says, "I want to be this guy. I want to be the biggest rock star there ever was, and I want to be in the early 70s." So poof, they sent him back. But there's a caveat, is that we're tracking your every move, and when we tell you to come home, you got to come home. And if you don't, we're going to zap you. You're done. So that third album, you find out that the engineers have been tracking him the whole time, and that he has to be at the certain point, the clock is ticking, and he has to go back. Well, there's a lot of complications, as you can imagine. And so the story ends, again, very ambiguously, is did he die? Did he go back? What happened to him?
What happened?
And so that's
Nice.
the last song on that third of the trilogy. It's called "The Kid Is Dead" with a question mark.
Gotcha.
So
Wow.
yeah,
Nice.
trippy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, holy cap. I mean, high concept stuff. That's
we
cool.
call it drunken rambling, and again, and then we're gonna have him do this. Oh, and then he's gonna and so it got more and more insane, and we were just loving writing the story. So right now I am working on trying to get a screenplay for that, and hopefully bring the Supersonic Star Show to the big screen, if
that'd be cool.
Possible.
Oh
yeah.
Wow, that'd be cool as heck.
Yeah. So I got some people working on that with me, and
Nice.
you know, with Ryan's already given the blessing, and he's like, "Yeah, knock yourself out. I don't care. You know, go for it." Ryan's pretty laid back, so that's cool. That's where I'm at right now with that. Yeah, love that band.
Nice.
So, the Shabby Road Record Show.
Yeah. So that was when Ryan and I would do our Tuesday nights. And remember that was just listening to records. We weren't playing music. That was about a year that we did that before we decided to write a Kiss song.
Do a podcast.
Yeah. Oh. Well, what we did was Crash Street Kids came along, and we stopped doing the listening parties because now we're recording records. So Ryan one day says to me, "You know, dude, I miss our Tuesdays. I miss our Tuesday nights." He goes, that meant a lot to me. And I was like, "Me too, dude." So he says, "Why don't we just get back together?" This is a few years later. This is probably 2010, 2011, maybe even later. And he says to me, "We should do exactly what we just did, you know, with the listening parties that we did, but we'll do a podcast." And me being cyber challenged, I'm like, "What's a podcast? I don't know what that is." He goes, "Well, we do what we do, but we have mics in front of us." I'm like, "Oh, I can do that." So that's how Shabby Road Record Show was born. And, you know, I think, you know, the concept of that show is he brings 3 records and I bring 3 records, and, you know, and all that. And we did that for man. We did that for 7 years, you know?
Great. Yeah. Great stuff. And that I got turned on to a lot of music through that show. I mean, like you were discussing, you know, you were talking about you and Ryan sharing music, and you know, Ryan discovering new stuff through you. That's all of your fans, all of us learned, you know, discovered new material that we had never heard of, and, you know, even experienced some of that stuff. And we're like, holy crap, great music that we would never have known about without that show. So
yeah, thank you for that. And that was the intent. The intent of it was, we made rules. Ryan always make these because we're like, when you're playing, when you're 5 years old, and okay, pretend we're pretend we're the Knights of the Round Table, and you play Knights of the Round Table till mom calls you in for dinner. Well, Ryan and I always kind of went with that mentality. So we always make up our own little rules. Okay, now the car is third base instead of the telephone pole, change. So the whole idea was, let's make Shabby Road Studio the star of the show. We're just the vehicles. And let's pretend that studio is so big that hundreds of people can come in and listen with us. So it was basically like a giant private listening party. So we tried to make it that the audience was part of the show, that we were just our natural selves. I'm smoking doobs and we're having whiskey, and we didn't give a shit. There was no rules as far as what we did. We had the rules about your songs have to be in a mystery box, and then it just grew legs from there. Seven. I think we cracked the top 100 on iTunes, which was nice for a minute, which was amazing to us. And then we just got so busy, Crash Street Kids. We had just finished the live album, our fourth album, and had pretty much working on our fifth album, and Sweet Creatures. And that's when I got the call from Mikey. That's when Ryan and I both got the call from Mikey. Hey, I got a gig for you. Remember my buddy Lou, and so Ryan and I joined Louie's band, and we just, as it got busier and busier, and with my, when we'd come home off the road, I've got my students, and Ryan's got a family. And so one of the rules that we made is that we would never repeat an episode. If we ever have to repeat an episode, we're going to stop. So we wanted it fresh. We wanted every time you tuned in to get something new. Because if you think about it, if we all came down to the studio, the three of us, and I put on the same records that I'd played before, the fuck, we're not, It's not new. Bring something new. And that was one of our rules. And so we actually did have to rerun a couple of the programs. And at that point, we're like, dude, maybe we just don't have time to do this right now. So unfortunately, we had to stop. It was the highlight of my week doing that show. And I mean, we turned into comedy writers. We had sponsors, and they wanted us to do ads. And so I'm like, I'm writing all this shit. I'm writing all the ads for the sponsors, and our intros and outros we'd rip on each other. And it's just,
it was great.
Yeah. The man on the beach with no balls, ladies and gentlemen, my co-host, Ryan McKay. And he'd say something about me, and we just laugh, and it was fun. We just busting our balls, and it's really cool. And, but we got too busy, and we're like, let's just put it on hold. So, it's just like Crash Street Kids. We never broke up. We're like, we just don't have time to do this now. So we never broke up. There's a possibility that we might get together again, for a one-off maybe, or an album. Crash Street Kids has so much material that we could put out 2 albums right now if we wanted to. We're thinking about doing that, calling it Lost Kids, which would be fun. Nice. Just kind of finish them up, mix them, master them, and all that. But that's on hold. But it just, everything got so busy. And so same thing with Shabby Road Record Show. It's not like we're done forever. It's just like we gotta stop for now. And
go ahead.
Oh, so we're thinking about doing a one-off show and calling it the reunion tour. Because and then, which leaves us the option for about 9 more, the farewell tour. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah.
And so it gives us options for 9, 10 more. Look, how many farewell tours does Cher do? Come on, right? I mean, so
your album collection, how massive is it? You've been collecting all your life, right?
Can you see that?
Yep. There's the shelves.
Yeah.
You got one or two over there. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
I saw a couple there. Yeah.
There's there's probably about 3,500 records in there.
Wow.
Nice.
What's your prized possession?
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, there's, I prize, I cherish different records for different reasons. Obviously, there's some, monetary. I mean, there's some expensive ones in there that are, paid a pretty penny for, or that have gone up in value. But there's also some sentimental ones. Like, I love my Neil Merriweather albums. Neil became, again, 12-year-old high five. I discovered Neil Merriweather in a record store in Gaithersburg, Maryland, when I was 15. And I loved that record. And he was my rock star, my personal rock star, because nobody else ever heard of him. So, and I love these records. Well, lo and behold, me and Ryan are driving up to Vegas to do a Louis Prima gig one night. And he's just looking on, I'm driving, and he's on his phone. He goes, dude, did you know Neil Merriweather lives in Vegas? And of course, here we go. I go, dude, call him. He goes, call him. I go, call him. He goes, how do I go, he's got it. If he's on Facebook, he's got a number. Call the motherfucker. And Ryan does. And so we're driving. Oh, he texted him, I think. And or Facebook messaged him. And we're driving about, we didn't think anything of it. Neil Merriweather's he's gonna go, fuck you guys. He texted us back. And I'm like, holy shit. And so I go, dude, invite him to the show tomorrow night. Invite him to the show. Hey, Ryan, blah, 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 blah. Text. And bing. Yeah, I said, put him and 3 others on the guest list. I'm like, holy shit, Neil Merriweather. So Neil Merriweather comes to the show, and I literally cried. I'm a pussy when it comes to that. I literally cried. I'm like, Neil Merriweather.
Dude, that's awesome. That is so freaking cool.
But that's the way I do things. It's like, how ridiculous would it be to do this? Or, I'm a make them say no kind of guy. I'll ask for something that's probably I shouldn't even have the nerve to ask for, or attempt to do something. And if there's a naysayer, I'm going to convince them that no's not the word we're looking for here. And I've lived my whole life that way, and I do it nicely. I do it kindly. But I just don't like the word no. I'm one of those, I don't, the either or, like steak or you want steak or a cheeseburger? I'm like, I want steak and a cheeseburger. and so, I'm an instigator in that way. I like to make things happen. I like to plant seeds, and the seeds are the seeds of the ridiculous. It's like, wouldn't it be crazy if? And then I'm like, let's make it happen. Like with Crash Street Kids, our 3rd album, we were looking, because again, we have the rock and roll rule book, and the rock and roll rule book says you have to have a jet on your 3rd album. Look at Secret Treaties by Blue Oyster Cult, right? So Ryan goes, yeah, and I go, I'll get us a jet. He goes, okay, sure, get us a jet. So I'm doing a drum lesson. Not even a week later, one of my students were talking about that, and he goes, well, he goes, I repair jets. And I'm like, oh, God, you've got to be fucking kidding me. And I go, so how does one go about getting a jet for a photo shoot? He goes, well, I'll just call my boss. And so it just happened to be that they had a Gulfstream 4, and they were refurbishing it. So it was out on a tarmac, or in a hangar, I'm sorry, in one of the, in Falcon Field, which is an airport east of town in Phoenix here. And so the owner got a hold of me and said, yeah, we'll drag it out onto the tarmac for you. He goes, we're gutting it. So all the everything, the couches, refrigerator, everything's coming out. So he goes, do what you want with it. So I'm like, oh, you said that to the wrong guy, dude. So we went in there, we set the date, and we got there about 9 a.m. There was the jet sitting out on the tarmac. We walk up the stairs, and it's beautiful. And our cheerleaders, the Crash Street Kids cheerleaders, were with us, and we said, trash it. Just trash the place. We brought, there were probably 15, 20 bottles of booze, couple cases of beer. We brought all our wardrobe, and the girls went in there while we were doing photos outside. The girls went in there, and I told them, I said, make it look like we've been living on that jet for a year. Trash it. And they took knives and cut the seats. I mean, it was insane. And I look at Ryan and go, dude, I got us a jet. He's like, you motherfucker.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So that's, if we ever play together, I'm warning you. You know,
We're
but
gonna
it's
have
funny.
to book a show together. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, the funny thing is, it's sort of an adjacent story. If we can fast forward, I'm playing right now in a band called Escape the Hive. We just did our first album. It's not out yet, but one of the cats in the band, Mike, the keyboard player, calls me up. He goes, and I told him about the jet. He goes, and he calls me. He's laughing. He goes, "Hey man, why didn't you get us an aircraft carrier for the fucking record or for a video shoot?" I go, "I'll call you right back." So I got a friend I went to high school with. He's a commander in the Navy. I called him up. I kid you, my hand to God, I swear to God, I call, "Hey Rich, AD, listen, I need an aircraft carrier for a video shoot." He goes, "Can't do that, but I can do your battleship." I'm like, "When?" He goes, "Whenever you want." I go, "Who do I got to talk to?" He goes, "You're talking to him." And I go, "Okay, cool." Click. I call Mike. I go, "All right, I couldn't get an aircraft carrier." And he's laughing. I go, "Will a battleship work?" He goes, "You're kidding." I go, "No, kidding. Got a battleship."
Oh shit.
So there's going to be. So I might have been jumping the gun. We haven't shot the video, but we will be doing a video on a battleship.
Sweet.
Oh, that's kick ass, dude.
Oh, that's just another example of me going, "What do you mean no? That's bullshit."
I'm talking to AD Adams.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
Come on, man.
I get anything.
I tend to forget that the rest of the world just isn't as stupid as I am, though. It's like, they're looking at me like, "What is wrong with you?" I go, "Nothing. We want a jet, or nothing. We want this, or nothing. What do you mean? You don't see it. I'm seeing it in my head. So I'm a weirdo like that, but I like making shit happen.
I know who to go to if I need something. Then, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What do you think, Phil? Man, guys want to do your top 5 glam?
Yeah, I think we should jump into the top 5 glam albums. What do you think, AD?
Okay, I cheated a little bit because my rules. My thing with rules. I did do a little cheating.
Right.
So what I did, I couldn't narrow it down to the albums because if you listen to Shabby Road Records show, there are things we call bookend records.
Right.
And like there might be a band that's got 20 albums out, but they put out 2 in a row that define the band. All their albums are just filler material, but there are 2 records that totally define this band. So I started going over the bands and I'm going, well, if I do albums, I got to leave one of these albums out. So I cheated a little bit and I got like, okay, how do you want to do this?
Well, look, if you want to start, you can give your top 5 and then I can give mine and Bob can close out the top 5.
Okay.
Bob, does that sound good?
Sounds great to me, man. Sounds great.
Yeah.
So what I did was, okay, I got the artists down and I'll hit you with those right away. It's Bowie, but I couldn't narrow it down to, okay, do I want is Hunky Dory, Aladdin Sane, or the Ziggy record? And I'm like, fuck it, all 3. So that's so those 3 albums, Hunky Dory, Ziggy Stardust and Aladdin Sane came out, boom, 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 one right after the other. So that period in Bowie's career,
bam, yeah, okay, gotcha.
Okay, so you want to go next?
Nope, go ahead and do your whole 5, and then I'll do my 5, and we'll do that.
So next up is Slade, a band called Slade, British band. I love them. And again, I ran into that damn problem. So like, I can't narrow it down to one record. So again, there were 3 albums that came out right in a row. Their album called Slade with what they wrote their thing. And then right after that came Old, New, Borrowed, and Blue. That wasn't released in the US, but it was released in Britain. And so that came next, and then came Slade in Flame, their soundtrack album. And again, I couldn't throw any of those 3 albums out, but again, 1, 2, 3, bang, right in a row. So I have to include all of those. So we got Bowie and Slade in that era. Next would be Mott the Hoople, the mighty Mott the Hoople. Again, damn it, all the young dudes, then the Mott album, then the Hoople album. I can't, if I left one of those out, I'd have to cut off a toe or something. I couldn't, so those. So I got
Mott the Hoople,
I I mean, God, what's not to love about that? And then T-Rex. And again, bookend albums, The Slider or Electric Warrior, then The Slider.
Yep.
And see, again, I cheat so badly.
It's
number
funny
5,
because we have a lot overlapping. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So obviously, I'd be insane to leave out the New York Dolls. And of course, which album? They only put out 2 albums as far as I'm concerned. Anything they did after their Too Much Too Soon album doesn't count. It's in the Rock and Roll Rule Book. You can look that up. So their debut album, their Too Much Too Soon album. But man, then I'm thinking about it. I'm going, I can't. So that's my 5, right? But I can't leave Silverhead out.
Oh yeah.
So their debut album, and then 16 and Savage. So I did a top 6, and I did artists, and I cheated. I'm sorry, guys.
No, that's cool.
Yeah,
it's funny because I picked up some of those albums because of the show. I'm the Chevy Road Record Show, and got really into it. So here's my top 5. So here's my number 5 was T-Rex, The Slider. I prefer, and when I put the 2 and I was listening to Electric Warrior and Slider, I was like, I tend to gravitate more to The Slider. And 2 words, Buick McCain, man. That freaking song is so
great.
good. So good.
It's a great song.
Number 4, Neil Merriweather, Kryptonite. And that's directly because of you, dude. I love that album. And I bought that a couple years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And I wasn't I hadn't even heard of him before, I listened to the show. And I'm like, you know what? I got to pick that album up. I've always liked that album. I've listened to it, out there on YouTube a few times. And I bought that. And man, that's just become one of my favorite from that.
It's a masterpiece. I was going to include that, but I go, is that glam or is that? I didn't know. So
they classified it as glam. So because I went and checked. I'm like, is this glam? And this is pretty solid rock and roll. But so anyway, my number 3 was Alice Cooper's $1 Billion Babies. So I had to do an American, glam band. So I chose Alice Cooper. He's one of my favorite artists, and $1 Billion Babies. What can you say? I mean, that has my favorite Alice Cooper song, "No More Mr. Nice Guy" on it. So, just love that album. Number 2, Slade. So that
great album.
I mean, that is so Slade, and my number 1 pick. Those 2 bands are like my favorite from that era. And like you said, with the 3 albums, I've got all 3 of those albums, and it's a tough pick, but Slade it's How Do You Ride? It's got Goodbye to Jane, which is my favorite Slade song.
Classic.
Just love that. Yeah, just love that. So a great album. And then my number 1 is, honestly, if I would have just went with my favorite albums from glam bands, I probably would have had 4 or 5 Sweet albums. The Sweet is my by far my favorite glam band, but Desolation Boulevard, and that's the Capitol release, not the RCA release. So they had the RCA release. So the Capitol release was released in Canada and the US, which is a kind of a composition from Sweet Fanny Adams and the RCA release of Desolation Boulevard. So they kind of combined those 2 for the American release. But I do gravitate to the Capitol release. But yeah, I could have picked Sweet Fanny Adams. That's another great freaking Sweet album. But Sweet, is by far my number 1.
Yeah, that's a hard list, man. That's a tough list. I just, and I was trying.
And I had Alex, the sensational Alex Harvey band on there. There's others there just that you turned me on to, and I'm like, holy crap! There's just so much good music from this era.
Yeah, my brain works in a weird way because see, Alice Cooper, as glam as it was, I look at them as like a show band, Oh,
okay,
and Alex Harvey as a show band. Now it was the glam era; it was glam music, but again, my weird brain put them in a different spot. But totally legit what you're saying. I get that. It's freaking cool. On a side note, before he passed away, we had Neil Merriweather on our podcast on Chevy Road Record Show. We had him on twice. And what a dear, he became a dear friend. And before he passed away, he had enlisted Ryan and I to revamp the Space Rangers. So,
oh, really?
Yes, we were slated to be the new Space Rangers. And
Wow.
Of course, I wept and I wept and I wept. And again, 12-year-old me is going, you motherfucker.
Yeah. That's a great opportunity.
Yeah. So, you know, sadly, he passed away a few years from cancer, but what a beautiful soul. What a beautiful soul he was. And one of the funniest guys you'll ever know.
I love that. Yeah, that one of those episodes that you had with him, you know, when the share bit. And
my God!
Yeah.
Oh, when he's throwing the spitballs in her afro wig, yes.
Yeah.
And what did he say? What did he say? He goes, it looked like a constant. Or no, it looked like the universe. Because she was wearing her big afro wig, and they were at the Grammys, and she was sitting right in front of them, so they're wadding up spitballs from a napkin and putting them in her hair. And so they, when the Grammys were over, if you don't know the story, him and his buddy ran outside just to catch Cher walking out to see what they had done. And of course, you know, they're waiting, and Cher walks out with her entourage, and they're laughing because there's all these spitballs in her hair.
I just thought that was funny as hell.
Oh, that's funny as shit, man. He's insane, certifiably, and super guy.
That's great.
You know.
All right, Bob.
Oh, well, man, we overlapped a little bit, all of us, but that's not a bad thing. That just means we all got good taste in music.
Yeah,
so I had David Bowie's Aladdin Sane on my list. You know, that was one that I had on there. You know, and these aren't in any particular order, man. They're just all great records. I also had Mott the Hoople, All the Young Dudes was one that I had. Obviously, you know, New York Dolls. T-Rex, I had that's the Electric Woman. Love that. That's just a great. I think it was by 71, so that was real early 70s. It's a good record there also. And then, you know, anything by Sweet, you know, I got to agree with Phil there. I can't pick one of their records. They're all really good records. So
yeah,
Sweet's a great band, but probably out of all those, I really dig the early Bowie stuff, man. You know, the Ziggy Stardust stuff.
Oh man, it's just so classic. I mean, what a great time in music. You know, like after this, you know, it's weird how there was an overlap between the hippie '60s, you know, with Hendrix and Joplin and that era, and the birth of Zeppelin and the birth of Alice Cooper. You know, people don't realize that Alice Cooper's first album came out in '68.
Yeah.
You know, and that was their Bizarre records. That was Pretty's for You, and then Easy Action. So their Warner Brothers era didn't start till the 1970s. But that era when Sabbath put out their first record, Zeppelin, that became, even though it was '68, in my mind, it was the '70s. You know, it was removed from the pop and the Beatle era, and then the hippie era, or as I call it, the filthy hippie era. And that whole era, I think between '68, '69, you know, because there's bands like Blue Cheer coming out, MC5, you know, and that up to 1975.
Great.
If there should be a radio station that just play. Well, that's another reason we have the Shabby Road Record Show, because all the bullshit that's on the radio right now.
Yeah.
And you can drive to any town, you're listening to 92 Rock. And then you go to Miami, you're listening to 93 Rock. And you go to Boston, you're listening to 94 Rock. And the same guy in New York sitting in his underwear is doing all the programming for that. And so you got the same playlists no matter where you go. And I remember back in the day when you'd travel, you couldn't wait to get into a new town and find that cool radio station, because you knew you were going to discover something. Right. Because they're not playing in Baltimore what they're playing in Richmond, and they're not playing in Richmond what they're playing in Raleigh, North Carolina, or Fort Lauderdale, or Portland, Maine. And so there was individual stations, and they had their personalities and their guys, and they were programmed on location. And so you'd have regional stars, you know, bands like Crack the Sky that who the fuck has heard of Crack the Sky? But they were huge. I mean, they were huge to me. And they were our band, you know? So you'd be driving through Baltimore and you'd hear a Crack the Sky. Well, if you're from, you know, Nebraska, and you're driving, who the fuck is this Crack the Sky?
Yep.
You know, you guys probably have some bands that we never heard of, like Mulkey Cole. I don't know if you remember them. You know, they were a big deal. Band never really made it because they were regional, you know?
Right.
So, but nowadays, you know, it's with the programming and everything, it's just terrestrial radio is bullshit. You know, I just can't, I don't think I've honestly listened to a music radio station for probably 15 years or more.
It's the same stuff. Yeah, it's just the same stuff over and over.
Yeah, you just can't escape it.
I agree. There's some cool internet stuff out there, some cool internet stations that play a nice mix and change it up. But yeah, just the FM stations seem like they just fit all into one box, and that's it, man.
Yeah, it's sad state of affairs.
Yeah, so we always finish up our interviews with the question, what's you spinning? So what do you got? What have you been listening to? You know, what's the last thing you listened to before you got
Ryan McKay and the Broken Brains.
And the Broken Brains? Nice.
It's on my stereo right now. It's on my record player right now.
It's great. Not playing, but it's a great album. Yeah.
I love my boy. I'm going to support him everything he does, man. He's a part of me, man. He's my brother, and I'm going to support everything he does. So he came over when he played me the record before it came out. He's like, I want you to listen to it. And well, man, we sat in here and we listened to the whole thing. And I'm like, Ryan, dude, you motherfucker, you
killed it.
I love it. You did it, you know? And so when the record came out, I called him and I said, all right, where do I put my orders? He goes, you're not buying anything. I was like, yes, yeah, I'm not. I'm buying your record, dude. I'm buying your fucking record. So he came over and he brought the album and the CD and of course the poster. And I gave him money because his kids helped put the artwork together.
Yeah.
So I gave him $30 and I said, give them to the kids and tell them welcome to show business, their first royalty check. Nice. So and we sat here, listened to the record, and it hasn't left my turntable. And this was 3 weeks ago. So
nice.
Ryan McKay and the Broken Brains, and of course his accompanying CD, The Fall of the City, and it's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Very cool.
Yep, I agree. We had him on a couple weeks ago, and we talked about that. And
I saw that. Yeah.
Listening through, that album, I'm just like, wow, this is just he is, to your point, just an incredible songwriter. Yeah.
You know what
go ahead.
What I mentioned to Ryan is I go, you know, it's the Broken Brains album. I go, and there's no guitar on it. I mean, he's a guitar player, but I go, right. Ryan, it's you know, I expected a much more guitar-y album, and it wasn't. It was that's the way he does shit. That fucking guy. A lot of texture. Yeah, and I said to him, I said, you know what, Ryan, if I were to sum it up, I would say that this album is completely what I would not expect. But I go, you know what it is, though? I go, I know you, and I know your record collection, and this album represents your record collection because there's so many different styles.
Yeah.
And so many different things happening. He's not a Johnny One Note, man. The dude can write a song and he can take you anywhere he wants to take you musically. And I just love that about him. And when we're done listening, I go, dude, I just listened to your entire record collection. He's like, fucking A. Like, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, Phil, man? What you listening to, brother?
Well, right before I was listening to some Scorpions this morning, I put on Blackout and was listening to that. I've been listening to a lot lately this week anyway, is our mixes came back we started recording our second album. Oh, yeah. So I've been going through mixes, and I tell you, you have to get a step away from it every once in a while and kind of, refresh the palette a little bit and then come back to it so you can, get your head around the mixes and stuff. But so between the mixes, I threw in some Kiss and some Scorpions. So yeah, nice. That's what I've been spinning. So what about you, Bob?
Well, I've been just recently here in the last couple of days, I've been listening to Sammy Hagar and the Circle quite a bit.
Nice.
That new Crazy Times record it's phenomenal. Sammy Hagar has been very consistent throughout his whole career with just about everything he does. I mean, he surrounds himself with great, great musicians and good people, and just keeps putting out great records. And I really enjoy his stuff.
Man,
So,
he's ageless, man. That guy's.
I'm telling you,
what's going on with that guy?
Yeah.
I'm drinking what he's drinking.
Guy, 70, 75 years old. He's 75, and his voice sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, he puts it out there too. I mean, it's not like he's singing gently like Karen Carpenter,
Right?
I mean, he's a
He's
lot of throat,
range, man. Yeah,
dude. Right? Yeah,
yeah,
insane,
yeah. And just a powerful voice too. You think over time, having such a powerful voice, but because you think of guys like Rob Halford and some of those guys, even Paul Stanley, who their voices deteriorated over time. And they were so strong and so powerful. Rob still got a lot left in there, but Paul is really struggling. But when it comes to Sammy, he's been one of my favorite vocalists forever. But he just, like you said, ageless, man. He just timeless, ageless. He sounds as great today as he did back in Stan Hampton is one of my favorite albums. That's when I first got into him. So
he first he did that Montrose, that first Montrose album.
What
year was that?
Yeah. That was back in 70.
70, yeah,
70,
man. I mean,
71, somewhere in there.
And he was hitting it hard then.
That's a killer album. Yeah.
Oh,
fuck yeah, that's a great album. Shit.
That and the follow-up was good. I think the follow-up to that was a good one too. But I mean, to be able to sing at that level, and I'm not talking about playing stadiums. I'm talking about the power and the throat. It's so throaty. That's what the thing is. Usually if you have a body voice or a head voice, like Halford's got more of a head voice.
Right.
But he goes right for the throat. And how goes, all those years, and he's still killing it, man. It's amazing,
Yep.
Awesome.
It has to be something in that tequila.
Yeah.
Or the rum. I don't know which one, but maybe that's what he's just bounced back from tequila and rum. And it's done its trick, Yeah,
it might be worth experimenting.
There you
go. That's what I'm going to have to do, because you know what? I'm not supposed to be a vocalist, and I kind of got forced into it. So maybe that's going to be my regimen. Just switch back and forth from rum and tequila, and
there you go.
Make it work.
I think you got a plan there, brother.
So let's AD, tell us about what you got going on right now, what's coming up for you, and as we wrap this up, what do you got going on? What's going on right now?
There's a lot happening in my life. In besides the actual bands, like right now I'm working with obviously Escape the Hive. That record's coming out. I think they pushed it back to late April, early May. So that record, our debut album, will be coming out. And of course that features Michael Beck from, he's a local cat, lives here. We're old friends. I did some recording at his studio years ago, met him, and we never were able to work together. He finally goes, dude, you got to do this. So Michael worked with Red Dragon Cartel, Jakey Lee's band for a brief time. But Michael's, in the Phoenix scene, Michael's the guy. He's the voice. He's the guy you go to. And an amazing engineer, great guy. So Escape the Hive has got him, bass player, a good friend of mine, Paul Williams, who I toured with a outlaw country band called DL Marble. So Paulie and I have history together, and then a couple other cats came in and stuff. So I got that going on. I'm still doing Louis Prima. We're still touring all over the world and making racket and putting out records. Our third album should be out this year also. And then I'm also playing with a cat named Hollywood Yates. Now this cat's interesting. He is a former WWE wrestler. So he's 6 foot 100, 1,000 pounds of pure brick. I mean, the guy's made out of bricks. And so he's also a 3-time rodeo clown bull wrangling champion. I don't know what the terminology is.
Oh, yeah.
And he still does that with the professional rodeo circuit. He was also, do you remember the TV show called American Gladiators?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was Wolf. Remember Wolf? Ow! He was Wolf on American Gladiators. Well, he's also got himself a country band, and I play with him. Yeah. So we tour. I tour with him as well. So I have to juggle a lot of touring. Yeah. So and then I'm also locally and Well, it was originally local. I hooked up this past summer with an Elton John tribute band. We just signed a management contract with a management company with offices in London, Miami, Phoenix, of all weird places, and Dubai. So that thing's taken off. This guy's world class. I mean, it's an amazing. Wow. I was started off just subbing for them, and boy, I went to their videos and I called the guy back and I go, "Are you guys using tracks? You guys are playing the tracks," because it was perfect. I closed my eyes and I swore it was Elton John, and the cat looks exactly like him. It's freaky. I mean, you've seen tribute acts where they put the fake mustaches on. Right. This guy's the real deal. He looks like Elton fucking John. He plays the piano like him. And he told me, no, everything you heard was live. And I'm like, I'm in. I'm totally in. I won't play the tracks, but they're so good. So I'm doing that also. I've got a real cool thing coming up in May. There's if you guys have ever heard of Modern Drummer magazine, they they put out the magazine and they went digital. 10 years ago, a company started called Drum Talk TV. They have tripled the viewership of Modern Drummer. It's called Drum Talk TV, and they're having their 10th anniversary gala. I happen to be good friends with the guy who started it, and they've grown to where they've got like 1 million hits a week on their site. It's the biggest drum platform, media platform in the world, and they're having their 10th anniversary gala in Vegas on May 20th, and I'm going to be the MC for that. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm going to be like Diamond Dave. All right. So that'll be fun. Yeah. So, yeah. So that'll be fun. I told Dan Schinder is the CEO of that. I go, you know what you're getting yourself into? He goes, I know exactly what I'm getting myself into. So that's cool. But he says, all the greatest drummers in the world are going to be there. Vinny Colaiuta, Steve Gadd, Weckel, all these cats. And Dan's like, yeah, you're going to MC, but he goes, we're going to introduce you at the beginning of the show, and you're going to come out and do a drum solo. I go, no, I'm not. I'm not going to play fucking solo in front of Steve Gadd, Vinny Colaiuta, all these, the greatest drummers in the world. I said, no, I am not doing that. But see, Dan, he's like me, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. And I'm like, So
you got that to work on.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. That'll be a fun little project. I haven't done anything like that. I'm one of those guys. I want to do everything. I want to jump out of an airplane. I want to wrestle a shark. I want to MC a gala. So
you want to Indian leg wrestle the guy Wolf from the Gladiators,
That I don't want to do that. Let me tell you, his arms. I could put my belt around his arms. I mean, it's just like nicest guy you'll ever meet. But yeah, he will arm wrestle you. But yeah, so. But it's just I just like to do different projects. So I'm having a really good time branching out. And this is one of those things where. Me being a drummer, I'm not the star of any show, and it's by design. Like neither is the left offensive tackle on any team. It's the quarterbacks, the runners, and the receivers. The singers, the guitar players, and what I call the verticals, the guys who stand up front and play, the verticals. And so I've never been the star of my own show. I've never been the main guy in the band. My own name has never been on my bass drum. Somebody else's name is always on my bass drum head, And so when I got the call to do that, it was an honor. I was just like, this is quite an honor for me to be recognized in that group of people. I look at myself like I'm a fucking hack. I don't know what I'm doing. You're the
star of our show, dude. I mean, honestly,
love you, man.
You and I've been a huge fan, man. You always you don't give yourself enough credit. You're a fucking slayer, man. You slay on the drums, dude. You are awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and so it doesn't surprise me that you're being recognized by those guys.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm one of those guys. I get uncomfortable with compliments like that, and you know what I mean. And thank you for that. I appreciate it. I'm always like, I could be better, and that's what I tell my students. I could be better. I'm going to be better tomorrow than I am today, and that's my goal. That's the only goal I ever really set for myself, is I'm going to be a better player tomorrow than I am right now, and I'm going to try to do something different tomorrow than I'm going to get that list of things I haven't done, in the music industry, and I want to start checking those boxes, and I've been doing that my whole life. Things that I want to do. Record at Capitol Records. I made 2 records there. That was on the list. Being able to check those off was freaking unbelievable. I'm going to make a record at Abbey Road. That's on the list still, but it's gonna get done.
Nice.
And so I always want to try to get a little better. And I'm grateful for where I am. I'm proud of where I am, but at the same time, it's kind of a humble proud. I know it's kind of an oxymoron. But I don't listen much to the records. Once I'm done with a record, I don't listen to it anymore. I'm done with that. I want to go on to the next thing.
What's next?
I'm done with that. Now I'll learn the songs that we're going to tour on or what have you. So I got to refer to the record. But when you're done making a record, the material by then. In most cases, a lot of times I'll get do a record with an artist, and they'll send me their demos, and I'll just write the drum parts, chart it out, show up in the studio for 1 or 2 days, bang out the record, and I'll never listen to it again, ever. And because I'm not a member of the band, if I'm a hired gun, I don't have to learn the songs. I'm not going to go tour on them. So I'll literally play songs once and never play them again. But if it's a band that I'm a part of or something that I want to be a part of, I'll listen to the songs only, or the records only, enough to get the songs I need to tour on. And I just don't listen to them again. I like to move forward. I like new things. I like to, okay, we're done with that. Ryan one time said, it was a great analogy. He goes, do you remember those photos of your 3rd grade class, and they line you all up and they take the class photo, and he goes, all that was capturing one moment in time. So, and usually if you look back on those old school pictures, the class clowns going, or putting bunny ears up into the guy next to him, and that, ready, everybody say cheese, click, that 1 nanosecond lives forever. That's what it looks like. And so to me, when you make a record, all it is a sonic photograph. That's what was happening then. We captured it. Let's go. Let's move on. Let's do something else. Let's do something. Let's build on that, or let's abandon that. Let's do something new. I'm kind of like that. That's my, I get bored easily. ADHD is,
Well, man, AD, we appreciate having you today, man. We really appreciate you taking time. It's been a great conversation.
You guys, thank you for having me. Phil, I'm a big fan of Phil's. I mean, his band, his record, and Ty, your drummer. Props to him. I was gonna wear my Alex Harvey. He sent me an Alex Harvey shirt. Yeah. And I was gonna wear that, but I stunk it all up yesterday. And I had a flat tire, and there's dirt all over it. And I'm like, I better wear a clean shirt for this. But thank you guys, Phil. Looking forward to your next record, the current record. I'm Your Rock Star. Thumbs up, man.
Thank you.
Great record. Well done, man. Looking forward to round 2, man. Can't wait to hear that. And Bob, thank you. Thank you for you guys, both of you. Appreciate you having me.
You bet, man. We appreciate you, brother. Really. We do.
Take care.
Man. It's been a pleasure.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Take care, guys.
Later.
Bye-bye.
All right, man. Thanks.